Hello, Yes But Why listeners. This is your host, Amy Jordan. Welcome to Yes But Why, episode 303, my conversation with filmmaker and improviser Brandon Reich. But first, let's talk about our sponsors. Yes But Why podcast is sponsored, as always, by Audible. Sign up today for your 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. Audible will give you a free audiobook download when you sign up, as well as access to hundreds of books and podcasts. There's so much on there that's just included in your account when you get it that you don't even really need to worry about buying anything new. But the cool thing is, if you, like me, have a really hard time sitting down and reading, you can listen to books just like you're listening to podcasts, like this podcast, for instance. I mean, yes, we all know Yes But Why is on Audible, but also there's so many other books that are on there. And, if you just don't have the time to read, Audible is just so helpful. I literally could not do my life without Audible. It really just helps me to stay connected. And now that I'm getting involved in a little bit more creative projects, like I'm working with this writing group, sometimes they suggest things to read, and I can listen to them on Audible when they say, hey, here's a cool book that would really help you with the thing that you're working on. Great. Can I sit down and read? No, I just can't. I don't know. I don't have time. The only time I have to read is right when I'm going to bed. But in the mornings when I'm doing dishes, I can totally listen to books on Audible. So it's super, super helpful. Check it out. Get your own account at Audible right now. You can go to audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy to sign up and get your account today. And it helps me. So, hey, I think that's pretty cool. Yes But Why podcast is also brought to you by podcastcadet.com. Podcastcadet.com is the company that my husband and I run to help podcasters. We have been doing podcasts for so many years now. We've just sort of logged a bunch of information about what we've learned and what we've gone through, and we're here to help you with whatever that you need. Whatever things that you're working on or new projects that you're trying to put together, if there's something podcasting related that you want to connect with us about, go to podcastcadet.com and contact us, and we're happy to help. Maybe we can help you just with the videos that are already up there that Chris has made with some good information for you. Or maybe you want to hire us to do some editing or helping you to figure out how to write your script or, just how to do marketing stuff. Connect with us and we will help you. And if you happen to get a service that costs money, just mention the code YBY20 and you'll get 20% off the first service or workshop you buy. Let us help. Podcastcadet.com. This week on Yes But Why, I talked to Brandon Reich, independent filmmaker and teacher of sketch and improv. Listen in as we chat about his journey from film school in New York City to making comedy movies in Chicago to teaching improv at the Fallout Theater here in Austin. I now present to you Yes But Why episode 303, filmmaker Brandon Reich on his calling to bring joy to audiences and artists alike. Enjoy. I'm Amy Jordan, and this is
Yes But Why.
Yes, but why?
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 This is the Yes But Why podcast.
Did you go to school for film?
I did, yes.
So in your school for in the classes and stuff like that, did you talk about film history and look at the way that they made it then versus the way we make it now and styles in that way?
Yes. I kind of did schooling backwards as far as college goes. Before college, I had no formal training whatsoever. And it was, I went to a tech school, New York Film Academy, and it was a 1-year accelerated college program. Basically, we would leave with a certificate, and day one, they're like, here's a camera. And I'm like, oh, cool. All right. Well, how do we use it? What do we do?
Where's the on button?
Yeah, basically. And there's theory, but it was definitely like a hands-on experience. And then I ended up in Chicago and continued studying film while simultaneously studying comedy. And that was much more like theory. Here's the old films, and this was the old style, and let's all watch this movie during the entire class. So it was different.
Yeah. I mean, were you guys really talking in the theory classes when you're talking about the history, which part of it, and I am really just more wondering from a like, what are they doing in the academic? Because I would love to dig into the 1-year program where they were like, okay, boots on the ground, like, let's get it done. This is how you get it done. Like, that's fascinating. But I want to finish my like first train of thought, which is about like the way that we as artists are connected to the overall flow of history. And I wonder, in the academic setting, are they like discussing different film types and the way that they affected the world around them? Are they discussing the physical, like, this is the practical effects used here versus now we use CGI? Like, what's the focus for you when you're in classes? What are they telling you about?
The experience for me was that I was able to choose certain classes that I was interested in because I was transferring all my credits, or maximum amount of credits, and so I chose a melodrama class, and we just watched a melodrama every time, and then we analyze it and talk. So to me that was like really fascinating, because other things got brought up, like trying to remember the name, but there's like the film code where you couldn't, if there's a criminal who kills somebody in the beginning, they definitely have to be punished somewhere in the movie. That was like a rule or a law, at like certain points. And so this code influenced the way stories and movies were told. And so filmmakers had to develop like creative ways to have a murder but not show it, so kind of like walking that line, I guess, of what you're able to do, and then how that influenced the way stuff's made now. But
man, I wonder who came up with that rule. Like, that sounds so like, I mean, like, I totally get it, like from the standpoint of maybe a particularly puritanical film producer. Like, I get the idea where they're like, well, but the bad guy has to be. I mean, I was just listening to a podcast with some other actors talking about the idea that these days villains always have to have a backstory that like explains why they're bad. And like, I thought, it's just so fascinating that it's almost like as storytellers, we're not just telling stories, but we're like orchestrating stories in a way that's like, how can I both teach the audience something and yet also like manipulate the way that it works so that it fits within the like current norms of like what's good and bad in our current culture. Man, fascinating.
Yeah. And any of this that I dig up, it's been a while. I've
sure
had a few beers since then. I'm a kid. I'm trying. Oh, what was that? I think it was because of Catholicism. I don't know. But
hard to know, because Catholicism has been up and down as far as like in the country and whether we like it or not. Like, it's been sometimes it's Catholicism, but I would say like Christianity as a whole has a tendency to want to squash the truth for the interest of like, hey, the world's beautiful and lovely. And I'm always like, okay, but I feel like you're ruining your own story. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't we have to acknowledge a certain level of gray to even get the whole Christ story? But, that's a much larger discussion. To sideline what you're saying about how you don't remember, at the end of the day, I think education's worth is what you truly take away from it. is what you, many years since you've been in college, of course, but like what from those days, both from New York Film Academy and the college you went to in Chicago. Which college was it?
It's Columbia.
Great. Yeah, from New York Film Academy and Columbia College, what you learned in both of those places are what you're using right now in your active filmmaking?
Wow. Everything. I think the technical aspects for sure. As I mentioned, like previously had no formal training, but and again, like improv, like definitely has influenced the way to tell stories and characters. And so, yeah, it's hard for me to peel back like the layers because both improv and like the film education is definitely like married, and I use them both together. And even my teaching, you know, I start, even if it's a film program that I'm teaching about, you know, camera, I'm all right, everybody, let's do an improv warm up, you know, and now we're loose and we're acting stupid, and we can comfortably communicate as a group and work together. Like, okay, now, yeah, that was a funny character that you did. Let's put that in front of the camera, and you know, so it's, yeah, it's very, the word's not relatable. What's that called? Where like birds like eat bugs off of hippos and stuff.
Symbiotic.
Symbiotic. There we go. Yeah.
I love it. I was like, I'm going to help him. What word are we looking for? Totally. Absolutely. I like that your experience of going to Columbia College and studying improv in Chicago were like so intertwined that like you can't even imagine making a movie or teaching about film without involving improv. I think improv kind of becomes a bit of an all-encompassing art form for sure. It's more of a philosophy sometimes than it is even an art form, because it can be so many different forms. But at the same time, like, I love that that's the thing that seems to be your through line, right? Like, and that is what is fueling you as you continue, and that you've stuck with in for many years since college, right? We've established it's been a few years, right? And so you've stuck with that. You're still using those skills, and those things are still the things that are inspiring you.
For sure. Yeah. And if I'm being totally honest, I think I went to film school not only because I had like the opportunity from my parents and helping with education, and but like a roommate was like available, and then another one was available, and I was like, oh man, you know, 2 roommates in New York, like I guess I have to say yes now, you know, so. It's like,
well, all these roommates want to live with me in New York City. I mean, I guess I should move there.
Right.
Oh, man, that's so funny. Where are you from originally? Houston, right?
Yeah, like then small town Magnolia.
Okay. All right. So not big city to big city, from like small town to New York City. How was that?
I was like afraid of being mugged every day. I was living in the ghetto in Bed-Stuy. So
sure. Who doesn't live in the ghetto when you first move there? 100%. I can't tell you. When my dad dropped me off at my first apartment in New York City, he was like, "Do I really have to leave you?" Perfect. Exactly. I feel like that's the essence of all dropping your children off in New York City. Like,
oh my gosh. I took an unmarked white van from the airport to my studio apartment with 3 or 4 other roommates. So I was scared the whole drive from the airport, dude. It's like, why did I do this? He was so nice, like, very persuasive. Like, but yeah, oh my gosh.
I unmarked white van. I feel you, man. I mean, I remember the whole time I lived there, there was this thing about the taxis that were just town cars, right? And like half the time they were like, yeah, they were the best. You should totally use those over the yellow cabs. And the other half was like, don't get in those cars. They are taking you to a boat in a port and you're being sold out. And I'm like, what? Like, oh my God. To the point where I ended up making friends with people who had like, this was before Uber, but it was like, I had friends who had like driving jobs. Like they picked stuff up or they took photographs of different things around the city. And I'd call them to pick me up from work and drive me home. Like it would be like, I'd work at a hotel until midnight and I'd be like, hey Bob, can you give me a ride home? Like I don't feel comfortable doing any of the options that I have. And he's like, yeah, sure. Where? Oh yeah, I'm right in the neighborhood of your work. Sure. Like awesome. You know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, New York seems so scary when you first moved there.
Absolutely. And on top of that, it's like, it's the culture shock. First time living away from my parents. It's like, man, this is nothing like the movies. It's like, so, but amazing experience. And I met people from all over the world, so it's, and it inspired me to like keep at it. I was, for sure. Learn about comedy, and so.
Oh, did you already hear and get involved with improv and stuff when you were in New York City?
I in class, I was the only one making comedies regularly.
Like comedy films. Everyone else is like, listen, this is very serious. There's a lot of crying. And you're like, this guy falls a lot. So
yeah, I was learning from the dramatic folks, like, your movie's hilarious. But no, and on a serious note, like I was like, wow, yeah, maybe comedy's my shtick. Everybody else is like really good. I'm just kind of like barely learning the camera. Seemed like everybody there was like ready to make like their movie. I was just getting my feet wet. So I ended up seeing like free shows. My gosh, so expensive to live there. So I didn't have any money. But I took the train and saw like the free Upright Citizen Brigade shows.
Awesome. You were talking about your making of comedy films as if somehow making comedy is less than making drama. Nay. That is incorrect. In fact, they breed that, the drama people, because they want to feel better. But let's be clear, comedy has every emotion, has every situation that could ever occur is comedy. Like the breadth of understanding humans and human behavior and acting, comedy. Like people in drama are often like, oh, I could never do that. And yet you'll notice a lot of times you'll see comedian actors in the most serious movies or the most serious television shows. The entire show, there's a show called Justified about a cop. It's a lot about murderers and crimes and stuff. It's a very serious show. It was not a comedy in any way, but every actor in it was a comedian. All of them were like all the side random bad guy characters, and like, one episode comes in, does something bad, we deal with them kind of thing. Everyone was a comedian. And I was like, whoa, I love this show for this. But then I noticed it as a regular thing in television shows. These serious, dark shows have comedians in them because we get it on a larger vibe than this. So I just want to say, I hear you putting yourself down for making comedy. No, they were just making serious films. Yeah, okay, we know what emotions are. We live them. But can you flip emotions? Can you take a situation and make it different than you expect? Can you surprise an audience? Because these are the skills of a comedian. And that is a much harder thing to do than to make them cry. Make them cry in 3 seconds. Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Respect.
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah, hold yourself in high regard, man. Making comedy films is an important part of understanding life. Even what we were talking about earlier, its connection to culture, that's one of the biggest ways that we can look at and review what culturally was going on at the time to see what they were making fun of.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. I totally agree. And I only wish that like, the highest platforms, also represented, comedy at a equal or, somewhat, reasonable, level as well. Oscars or, all the big ones, even like film festivals, super depressing movies, like, show show comedy some love, but
Yeah, man. Well, you know what? I think sometimes I feel like it's the same kind of thing, though. It's like the people that were in your classes making dramas going like, oh my God, you only make comedies? Oh. Those are the same people who are on the board for like the Golden Globes. And like, those are the people who are like, oh, what's that? Eddie Murphy's made 150 movies and they've all made millions of dollars. No, we're not going to give him an Oscar because he's funny. And you're like, what? Like, I'm sorry, and I feel like the internet now and the like viral thing is like, you can't ignore that. You have no way of tracking it. Like when people are like, try to make a viral video. You don't know. You don't know what people are excited about today. But when you do see what they're excited about and you're like, this is the number one video. I mean, the like understanding of human, like what they're going through and like what, like, it's just fascinating to me. And the problem with these higher level people, the executives, the stuff, I feel like they've become distant from the true art making, from the like front lines of what it is that we're trying to do. Because like, yeah, maybe when you and I are making stuff, we're mostly making stuff to make people laugh and like have a good time. But like, there are people that are making like serious satire stuff and like they're working hard to make sure that while you're laughing, you're like, are you acknowledging this terrible thing that's gone on in the world? And there's something really great about that, right? Like we all use our art for different reasons, but like, I don't know. Also, just because the cool kids don't say we're cool doesn't mean we're not. And I will jump on one small soapbox and then let you talk because I feel like I'm definitely talking a lot. But the improv thing, improv is the best. We've acknowledged. We both agree on this. Like it is a philosophy of life, of creation, of like how you can get through the day, but it's still uncool. People are like, oh my God, what am I going to yes and it? Everywhere makes fun of it. And I'm like, keep making fun of it, please. Keep telling us we're not cool, because the more you tell us we're not cool, the more we actually are cool. Like the idea of you being mad, I'm like, oh my God, we really make you feel that sad about yourself? Oh my God. Like, and the other part is you're not going to get the bro hunks to come and take an improv class if it's uncool. Great. Get out of here. I don't need you then. Go do something else. I want to collect the sweet, lovely humans. The people who are like, golly, I'd love to do a play, but everyone's so mean in my hometown. Get into your improv school, because that's where some sweet, kind human beings are. And you know what they want to do? They want to back you up. They want your thing to be the funniest thing. And like, if that's uncool, well, then I guess I'm uncool. Exit soapbox.
Sure. No, wow. Yeah, totally agree. 100%. Yeah. And just to add to that, like I can relate, I'm from a small Texas town, not an advocate of art, by any means. So, to know that there is like a form or a medium out there that allowed for, such like craziness and goofiness, and like it was so freeing. So I definitely want to mention, I did take like theater in junior high, and I had a teacher named Miss Meekins, and she was very supportive of acting and theater, and that's when I learned about Charlie Chaplin. I learned about improv, and I was doing like a duet acting scene, competing with that with a friend, and I was like not even in high school yet, and getting like these solid uh, uh, experiences. And then high school came, and it's just like, nah, football or you're a loser. Like,
but that's exactly the same as what we're talking about, like in the world of like, if only they'd give comedy a chance. Yeah, it's football or you're a loser. Like, it's the same world that we live in, but it's, and it's not to say that you actually are a loser, or that like football's the only thing, or drama things are the only thing, but they just have the loudest proponents. They just have the people who are willing to put cash behind them and say, because like, let's be clear, those awards, it's just cash. Like you're not going in there with an independent film. Like, you have to pay a lot of money to get involved in those. So it's a pay to play scenario. Forget it. Like, no, it's not. Then it's rigged. Like, it's not the best movie that came out. No, it's the best movie of the ones that had enough money to submit to be like in a festival. Like, yeah, a festival's fine. They've picked the things, but they don't make any bones about the fact that they're actually doing the best. No, it's the best of the fest. Who gave us stuff? Well, this was the best of what we received. They're not like pretending that they're really judging all art, right? If only the Oscars, Golden Globes were as honest, right? To say like, okay, well, of the people who were able to submit, and why not open it to everyone, right? Like, can I go to Oscar.com and like submit? I can raise money on a Kickstarter and get my like independent film considered? No, I can't. There's certain like barriers to entry, like football. You know what I mean? Like, they create this thing where they're like, oh, well, if you're not pumped, you can't do this. Oh, you can't run like a lot? Well, you can't do this. I'm like, when is there running in football? Like, it's very little running. Why do we have to run this much? But, they create barriers and then act like, oh, well, everybody had a chance. No, they didn't. Right? Now, sweet shout out to that middle school teacher. Go her for being so awesome. Like, sure. Amazing. What a great opportunity. And like, think about her for a moment, like her sweet little heart. She lives in this small town. She loves theater too. She's not living in New York City. What can she do? She can help these little kids put on these awesome plays, and she loves it, I bet. And it's great.
For sure. And with that said, like, the people who've inspired me the most, I know improv is, very white male saturated.
Sure, has been for a while.
So I don't have that going for me as far as wanting to stand out amongst the crowd.
Sure.
But I have more than, I have so many inspirations like Rachel Mason, who you interviewed. She was a huge inspiration to me, influence at Second City, and Ann Libra. She just incredible knowledge of comedy, and I'll name dropping all these people, but it's not all like white male. Women are funny, women are really smart, and they've actually been my biggest influence in the art form as well. There's some guys in there too. There's of course some white guys that I've definitely been inspired by, but I just wanted to touch on that. Like, definitely had some major influences.
Yeah, that's important to note. And especially since I feel like thematically a lot of what we're talking about is this like cool versus uncool. What do people accept as like the thing that is so like, what is the thing that we all decided is the cool thing? And I think that this idea where it's like, no, my inspirations are not, these faces that you see, but they, on the posters or whatever, or what they're selling to you as improv. They're these teachers who have spent time and like put in effort with me and care and like put in work to help build you as an artist. And that's really great. That's really awesome to give them a shout out. I know that you're like nervous about name dropping, but realistically saying that they're great, I think that's okay.
Yeah. And it's a huge journey in like any art form. I heard once that Bruce Lee was like really good because he didn't learn like one thing taekwondo, like he took from all these different forms and just like made his own style. And so I've tried to like apply that throughout my artistic process, and still doing that today. It might be taking some advice from you, like with the red light, you never know. But so it's like very, very important to me as a teacher as well, because I understand the responsibility of helping with that growth, and just basically wanting to pour out and give as much as I can to whatever class that I'm leading. And then, maybe they don't hear anything that I say, but maybe the next class, one kid will take away something that he uses the rest of their life, or whatever. So you just never know. And all the information that I'm putting out, I've received, so it's not like, oh man, I'm a genius. This guy knows this stuff. It's like, no, I just have been afforded the opportunities, and now I'm just regurgitating it. Of course I'm taking certain focuses and putting more emphasis in certain areas, but at the end of the day, like I'm just a dude, trying to make it like everybody else.
Sure. So. Again, though, don't sell yourself short. Every musician deals with the same set of notes and chords. There are no new musical notes, yet there's thousands, millions of different songs that all make you feel different ways. Like, just because we're all teaching a similarly packaged set of ideals for improv doesn't mean that maybe the way that you put it out there or the order in which that you share it with the students isn't a new and different way that will touch upon them. It's like music, we all have a style of music that we like, but realistically, like, they're all the same. Like, they come from the exact same meat, and like, there's no new meat. Like, it's not like, oh, we invented a new note. No. That's not going to happen. It's not. In the same way that, even though technically in improv, people are inventing new stuff every minute, right? But since we are just a product of our experiences, and then we, show them the beauty of your teaching ability and the beauty of your continued caring as a teacher is in how you organize the thoughts and how you consider your students as you create your way of teaching them in that way. How did you get into teaching?
I started teaching at a film program in Chicago, and I was with them for like 5 years. So the Digital Media Academy, they hired me. It was amazing because I got to eat all the food at the college campuses that they were renting out. So we had a meal card, and I was like, I'm not a starving artist at the moment for the summer. So that was around 2011, and yeah, it ended up being a really cool gig. Like, they sent me to New York to teach, sent me to California once, taught in Austin. So it was and I got experience, with little kids, elementary to 17-year-olds. And so the whole spectrum of teaching like film or some kind of like mixed media. I always thought of myself as an improviser up to that point. And I was implementing improv ever since, so it was pretty rough at first teaching, especially the little ones. It's like learning the patience, but you slowly get those tips from other teachers, and mostly like the disciplinary thing. But summer camp's a different vibe. Like, kids actually want to be there, and it's not algebra. And occasionally we did get a student that was like forced into this thing by their parents, but you do your best to like have an impression.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I teach summer camp
theater camp as well, and there's always a handful whose like grandmother made them go, and then like so at the beginning of every one of my camps I will be like, who's here because you want to be, who's here because your parents made you, and then I like just try to talk to the people who were forced to be there to find out what they'd like to get out of it, and then try to give them that. Like, okay, you don't want to learn how to write a show and perform that show? No problem. What part of this seems cool to you? And then we'll focus that for you. So if they're like, I really like costumes, I'm like, awesome. Here's a pile of costumes. Decide what everyone's going to wear. Like, you know what I mean? Like things like that where, you know, you adjust what's going on to the students and stuff. And oh man, kids are hard though. Like that must have been a wild first experience. I definitely taught adults for many years before I ever dipped my toe into teaching children. So bless you.
My gosh, it gave me a totally different perspective on teachers and how underpaid they are and so on and so forth. But it is definitely a good learning experience and actually gave me confidence to make bigger things and like, well, if I can hang out with a room full of, you know, little kids all day and everybody's okay, I'm okay. All right, I can handle some adults that actually want to be there. And so
it's true, man. If you can wrangle a bunch of kids to stay in a room for a period of time, you know, world peace just around the corner.
Yeah. And tasked with the responsibility that these kids have to collaborate and make movies. They've got to learn camera, learn story and edit and show their parents at the end of class. Otherwise, so it's like, yeah, but kids are super creative, not trying to discredit them at all. Man, kids are so much more creative than adults, and adults are just like, they're creative too, just very self-conscious. Kids are like, I don't care. Let's put a dragon and a fairy and like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We got in, I usually start talking about childhood up top, but you and I got into, I was fascinated by your film school journey. And so I kind of dug into that. But let me ask you then about your, you know, childhood play. You're right, 100% that kids have a sort of freedom to the way that they perform. And I feel like personally, children show you what their imagination like ability is, and you know the unfortunate part is the rest of their like growing up is just squashing that. And when I teach improv, I try to pull it back. I'm like, don't forget all those things, who cares, those football players didn't know what they were talking about, let's get to the meat. You are a perfect performer, let's talk about it. Like, so what were you doing when you were a little kid? You have a bunch of siblings, how did it go?
Yeah, I was the youngest of three. So I've heard before that the youngest is kind of that mediator, and you know, trying to make my people laugh or make my siblings laugh to ease the tension. Or my parents fought, I'd you know, do something cute or funny to help them forget that, you know, the bad stuff that's going on. So I think that definitely played a part. My family had, I'm 35, so my family had a giant family cam, you know, with VHS, and so we would record our trip to the mountains, you know, and I was just always fascinated, like, wow, you can take that tape and put it in, and we would be on TV. So we would start making like little sketches, my sister and I just messing around, and technology got better and the tapes got smaller. So,
for a while, that was the only improvement. It was still like, but it's still the same one button, and that's all. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. But it was still really incredible because you could, you know, hook the camera up to the TV, and in a small town that was big because we didn't have any entertainment close by, so we were our own entertainment. And so me and my friends, the same group that would like do the junior high improv or plays and stuff, we would create our own TV show or sketches. You know, we didn't know that's what they were at the time, but we're like, hi, I'm da 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 da, and it's windy outside, and we'd have like a leaf blower. So we'd be reporting the news from Magnolia, Texas, and but then somebody would get like hit with a stick or a broom, just randomly. It's like we're literally just trying to make each other laugh, like, and that's really the only motivation that we had. So I wasn't into like SNL. I mean, junior high, even high school, didn't. I knew about it, but I was like, that's not funny.
Sure.
I knew of Mad TV. I thought Mad TV was really funny. Man, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He played like a little kid, Stuart. He's like, I don't want to do it. So me and my friends would get obsessed with that character and even like bring that to school. And we had like, you know, girls coming up to us saying like, you know, that thing you do, that voice, that's not cool. Like, oh wow, okay, so you know,
cool. I urge everyone that's listening to know that anytime someone takes time out of their life to tell you that you're uncool, you're actually the most cool. And that's why they're telling you that you're uncool, right? If you have like a real problem, they'll talk to you directly about that problem, right? But uncool, that's one man's opinion, right? Or one little girl's opinion. And, you know, don't listen. Everything uncool that you like is awesome.
Yeah, but it's a really confusing thing to hear, though, because
totally,
especially if it's like a cheerleader and you understand that like status matters, and it's like, oh wow, they're probably talking to their friends, and does everyone see me like this? Oh my gosh, so there becomes this like fitting in type, you know. So but I'm thankful to have like a supportive group of friends then that we literally just were a tight enough group that we were just like kind of rebellious in that way. Like, you know, we don't care what people think. So we kind of protected each other while also internally really giving each other a hard time and making fun of one another as a way to show affection, you know, as young guys do. So
I'm from Boston. I get making fun of your friends. Oh yeah, we're a harsh bunch, so I get it.
To me, that's how you know, like, they really care about me, you know, like they gave me so much shit for that, like yeah.
I know exactly, right? What a messed up way. But that's again why I'm like harping on the uncool thing. I'm like, no, if your friend said you were uncool, you'd be like, well, high five then. But like, you know, some rando says it and all of a sudden you're like, wait, am I bad? No, you're not bad. High five again. Like, you're the best. You're the best because you know why? At the end of the day, as artists, all we're doing is trying to create a reaction and, oh, you did.
Yeah, 100%. And so I basically tried to avoid awkwardness from during high school. I was like, okay, cheerleader says that's not cool. I need a lifestyle change.
No.
Unfortunately, I dropped, all of that, like pursuit of love for like acting, started trying to work out and be an athlete, and because that's in what I was seeing was success at the time. And basically that was my high school life, trying to be an athlete that I wasn't, and then graduated and realized, I gotta think of something to do with my life. And did a year at community college and started thinking deeply, like, okay, it's go time. I got to get serious. What do I want to do for the rest of my life that would be enjoyable? And I just kept going back to, making sketches with my friends, and how much we laughed, like watching each other on TV. And I was like, okay. So that's when the opportunity popped up to go to New York. And I was like, very, very professional about explaining it to my parents. I created I was like, this is New York. You know, I bought my dad a ticket to New York and paid for the hotel. And I was like, I want to show you the school. And that I'm serious about this, Dad. And so it's a complete presentation. You know, my dad's a born and raised Texan, like showing up in New York City. And I imagine his reaction the entire time was just like shaking his head. No, I don't know. But, you know, I got there and he was supportive. My mom, they're very supportive.
Man, what a cool opportunity too. And like such an interesting choice. Did you know that the academy that you were going to was going to be so immersive in technical knowledge? Like, was that what you were trying to do? Like, okay, first I got to figure out how to do it, and then I'll figure out the arty part after that. Or did it just sort of like happen upon, and when you got there, you were like, great, I'll go to film school. And then you get there and they're like, by the way, you're going to learn what every knob is and how it all works and technical everything.
I got a little preview or explanation of the course. For the most part, the selling point for me was New York and not living with my parents a year out of high school. And I do wish I'd have done more research or had some help with that and figuring out, you know, because if I'd have known, I probably would have went to Chicago right away. But I don't regret it. I think New York really prepared me to figure out what I wanted and where my focus wanted to be. It helped me grow up a lot. So I definitely have gone about life with a more naive perspective and figuring out as I go. Kind of like improv, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
no, there's nothing wrong with that. That's that's my favorite part about when I get into a improv 101 class I'm teaching and everybody's bright-eyed and naive. I'll take it. I'll take it above all else, you know. That's when you know it's like, oh, it's gonna be a good class. But no, I thought, to be honest, I brought it up because it seems like an amazing choice to immerse yourself in technical knowledge up top, because that seems to be a thing that is super necessary to need to know if you're going to live your life in it. Number one, learning all the stuff, learning how to do it, how to make it happen. It's not just like, hey, I wrote a screenplay. Cool. Do you know how to make it? No? Well, good luck to you then. You're at the mercy of other people's thoughts and feelings. But if you know how to do all of it yourself, then you have a better control over it, and you like know when people are blowing smoke at you, when you hire people to do things, you're like, you don't need that. I know you don't, because I've done it. That's very helpful. Plus, like, New York connections seems like that could be really great. I mean, like, I appreciate that you moved out of New York. So did I. I lived in New York for about 5 years in my 20s as well. It felt like the right thing to do to start a theater career, you know? But, you know, also not my place, not the space where I was like, yeah, this is where I'm growing old. No. But lots of lessons, lots of good stuff. Were you able to like make any connections or have like internships with anything outside of school, or was it very like, oh, you're focused here inside the academy?
So short answer, I didn't have internships in New York. I did have a job later working at YBY Valve. The valve company is the only factory on Manhattan. But anyways, this is a really funny story that I'm actually planning to write later as like a sketch. But anyways, I guess I can't leave people hanging.
Tell me everything.
Long story short, I got the job and the owner died, and the guy who took over the company was retiring or going to sell the company. So basically, the new owner didn't want to talk to anyone. He's like, the owner is rich, and so you're going to get a lot of calls from people, probably just trying to get money. And so they said they don't know that he's dead yet, so you just have to tell them that he's dead. And so I was the administrator, and literally all I did was take calls all day, just saying like, Hobie Valve, he died. And, and, and like they didn't have care how I delivered the message either, because it was, there's some distance and but also a funny detail is that upstairs of the office was like an enema clinic for models. So models get like enemas before their shoots or whatever to lose weight. And so all day long, I'd see a model like going up and like, she's going to get an enema. Hello, holy valve, he died. Like, so, oh my God. Some of this stuff you can't.
Oh my God!
You can't make up, Like I feel like I struggle with fiction because the best stories are really true.
Oh my God, that is so hilarious and great. Like, I'm so happy that was your life experience. Like, what? Because it's perfect. It's so perfect. This is why people like us have these jobs. I've never had a normal job in my life. Never once. I've worked at places that were normal. And then because you know what though? You see the world the way you want to see it, right? So my whole life is just a comedy show. So's yours. Like, no matter where you go, because a lot of people, I can guarantee you, we both know people who, if they got that job, would have just quit. Would have just been like, no, I'm not going to tell people he died. But you were like, you know what? I'm going to do this. Let's see what happens. Let's see how many people call. And you're like doing like a tick tally, like during the day. You're like, I got 700 calls today. I said he died 700 times. Like, wow. Yeah. Like,
and the reactions were the best. Like I looked forward to like wondering how people reacted to the delivery. It's like, so that was something else.
Oh
I don't even know what we were talking about.
No, we were talking about jobs that you got in New York City, and I had asked about film jobs, but then you're like, wait, hold on. Here, let me tell you about a wild job I had in New York City. And I get it. I mean, I had a handful of theater jobs, but I also had a handful of crazy, intense, weird side jobs. Oh my God. I'm like holding myself back from telling you stories because I, like you, have only had weird day jobs where I was like, did you know this was a weird thing? Or like, so I got this job at this ridiculous location. And of course, it was ridiculous. Like, oh man. No, but that's the beauty of it. Like, I don't know what they're making or doing in New York City, but it's all ridiculous and insane. And I love it. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah, New York. That's something about it, is that it is nothing normal about it, really. I mean, step on a train, and in a subway or train in Chicago is, there's some weird stuff going on. Maybe like once a year you'll see somebody like actually like take a poop or something on the train, but like the subways in New York, there's something interesting or an interesting character like every single day. Is like, what in the world?
Yeah.
And come from a small town that, and it was eye-opening.
I bet. Now, here's a question, because I moved there from Boston, so my experience is one very specific vibe to another, and I'll explain to you what it is. But for when you moved there, did you find that people in New York were nice or mean or weird? Like, what was the general vibe? I know you imagined your parents thought, but like for you, you went there, you wanted to be there. What was the vibe of the people?
I would, in just like a short sentence, I would say they're very forward. I wouldn't say they're mean. Growing up in the South, like, I'm waving at my neighbors and people that I don't know. Oh, hey, well, But in New York, I got someplace to be. Get out of my way. Like, it's not that they're mean that I learned. They're very forward. Like I got stuff to do. Like I don't have time to sugarcoat it. So that was my experience from it.
Yeah. So I'm from Boston, which, if you've never been there, is an angry location. Everyone's just sort of like rough and tumble. It's sort of I like to say that the state motto is "You think you're better than me." And so when I moved to New York City, I told my friends, everyone's so nice here. Like, people are so kind to me and everyone's helpful. And they're like, in New York City? And I'm like, yeah, everyone's really nice. And it was purely in contrast to the angry Boston. Like, because other people are like, that is not my experience of New York. And I was like, it isn't? But again, you mentioned you were naive. That's how I'm naive as well. Like, I'm like a Disney princess who wanders around like the ghetto and I'm all like, it's beautiful here. Do you see it? Like, and people are like, this is terrible. This is a dangerous, horrible neighborhood. And I'm all like, the beautiful brick. Ah, yes, look at that cup just flowing in the wind. Like, I don't know why, but like, that's how I experienced it.
And it just reminded me. So one of the first days I was like crossing the street in Brooklyn. I was like waiting for the light. You know, New Yorkers don't wait for the walk light or whatever. And I'm waiting, and this guy just goes out, and I think there's even like traffic coming, and he like stops the traffic. He looks at me and he goes, "This is Brooklyn, baby. We run the streets." I was like, awesome. That was definitely memorable.
Oh, I love it. And I love the idea that he like told you as an empowerment, like, don't let it hold you back, man. Come on, join me.
Yeah.
These cars will stop when I tell them to stop.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hopefully that guy's still out there running the streets. I hope so.
For sure. He's a survivor, 100%.
Yeah, cars don't go over him, so it's like he's super safe.
Yeah.
Oh man. So you're in New York, you learned this technical stuff, then you went to college. I'm sure it was a bit more, like we talked about, a little bit more flowery. They teach you about themes and whatnot. You're into comedy, you get into improv. What then was your next step? How did you get to Austin? Or is there another city and adventure between Chicago and Austin?
Yes. So I went New York, back to Texas, actually, Houston, because it was a year program, and I had an internship from contacts in New York in Houston. So I got to work on The Tree of Life and another feature film called Mao's Last Dancer as a location intern.
Awesome.
And then I got a job at a production company as a PA in outside of Houston in spring at a company called Moffett Productions. And the owner, he took me under his wing, and basically I would have meetings. I say meetings, like hangouts with him every day after work. And this guy, really inspiring. I don't know how else to explain it, but he was a radio talent back in the 70s. He introduced the Beatles, like at the Astrodome, Rolling Stones, stuff like that. So he was well known in the rock and roll world, and then created his own company doing radio ads. And long story short, I was only there, it felt like a long time, but as soon as he gave me a job, paid job in production, which is really hard to get, he inspired me to leave and go to Chicago. So studied in Chicago, did all that stuff, Second City, IO, ended up interning at both places, and having my classes paid for from interning. Otherwise that wouldn't happen. I'll digress a second. That's why I haven't taken any improv classes in Austin. Just can't afford it, you know? So totally. In Chicago, was like 300, 350 a class. And I got to do both programs for free, or interning. But anyways, so that was a huge blessing. And I was on indie teams. I went to Dirty South Improv Festival in North Carolina with an indie team, Sketchfest with another team called Funny Bones. And it was just a wild opportunity. And then I did IO, and I was kind of putting all my chips. I was like, okay, I'm a filmmaker, but I'm really enjoying this indie scene in Chicago. And, maybe that's my thing. I can watch these like main stage shows anytime I want for free because I'm working there. And, I learning a lot from these other comedians that, so I was like, okay, so I'll try climbing the Chicago pyramid as a performer and maybe be on a boat or something like that. And then I didn't make the IO house team. I was heartbroken. So I was like, really, really took the wind out of my sails. And I was like, man, if I'm into something, like I'm all in, like I'm not gonna not commit to whatever I'm trying to achieve. So I had to regroup, created my own indie team, and that's when I started producing and shooting more short films. And there wasn't a lot of growth in that. And I got on like another house team in town, OGM, and still I didn't feel like I was on a path of like inspiration. I felt like I really needed to actually take a break, but I just couldn't, like if I take a break, I'm gonna forget or I'm gonna get worse. So I just kept going, powering through, and basically burnt myself out. I was for about 5 years, I was like performing bar prov and smaller theaters, and sometimes second city like Skybox and DeMott, stuff like that. But for the most part, I needed to take a break and couldn't. and just straight up, I was looking for some change, and family was continuing to be like, come back to Texas, come back to Texas, come back to Texas. Later, they said, go to Austin. Because of course, Austin is its own little world here. But yeah, it was, I just had like a heart to heart. I actually went camping, did the whole like standing on a mountain, yelling and like, okay, I think I found peace in what I'm trying to do for a decision. And I was like, I want to make a movie. That's always been a dream. Not sure what that is yet, but when I was in Houston interning back then, I made a short film that I was proud to share with other people. Hey, look, I made this. And so I always thought that could be a bigger thing. And long story short, some friends from Magnolia were moving to Kyle at the same time that I was thinking about jumping ship. And they're like, hey, if you help us restore this house, we'll give you room and board. So basically you can stay here and we'll feed you. Just got to help paint and help with the floors or whatever. And said, okay, I'll do it. So I was able to transfer like a job teaching film here because they had a different location. So I had some stuff, but and being from Texas, I had a few friends in Austin as well. So in a way, it was a lot like just coming home. And that's when I, through that same family in Kyle, I got connected to Originator Studios here in town. And they were doing a 48-hour project. And it just so happened that so I was a PA or still photographer on that, and they ended up winning they had Dave Buckness on the team, and I'm trying to remember their names. Rachel Madarski. So it was all like improv people on the 48, and that was my first 48 project. I was like, this is awesome. And so I fell in love with 48s after that, and I've done like 5 or so, 48-hour films for some reason.
I love it. You get 2 days to do everything, and then you have a finished product. What's not great about that? Like, otherwise it takes years, man. If you want to like get it done and learn so much about what you could do if you had more time, then do a 48, because I've done a 48-hour like sketch thing where we did, maybe it was 24 hours actually, but you know what I mean? Like we made that whole thing and I was like, wow, I can't believe we did it so fast. But it's like, if you're focused and you got a group of people that want to do something, like you can do anything. And that's the beauty of those festivals, and how quick you can turn it around and go back to like showing off. Hey, look, everybody, look what we made. Like, it's amazing. I've seen some amazing stuff made out of those things.
For sure. And it's great to meet people. You don't have time to like disagree. So it very much is like improvise and yes, and in each other in the process. Like we don't have time to argue, just let's go for it.
Yeah.
And so I love the improvisational aspect of it. If you basically create an outline for the story, and you can, have improvised dialogue here and there. But so yeah, big advocate for 48s. Definitely recommend it if anybody's itching to, like you said, just knock something out, big picture, just get it done in a weekend.
Yeah, man. I mean, and you learn so much about it. If you are like, I'm on the fence, I want to know whether or not I want to do this, do that. Because you only are dedicating 2 days, not like 2 years, which is normally how long it takes to accomplish like a full-length film. Like, yeah, do it. And then if you finish and you're like, that was terrible. Well, P.S., the 2-year version is going to be way worse. Like, you've learned, and now you can check that off the list, I don't know. I think there's something really important about trying something and then it's okay. You like it or you don't like it. Great. Now you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it got me out of my comfort zone, like we've made a fantasy, we've made a superhero movie. So stuff that I never would have tried if it wasn't, part of the project requirement. So, yeah. And it's, I think as artists, here I am. I'm going to speak for all artists.
Do it.
It's like we're gonna. I think my own fear is like we're gonna stick to what we know. What we're comfortable. Otherwise, there could be so we can go off the rails a little bit. So these projects really got me out of that, and I was able to expand on genre. And sure, comedy can be implemented in all these projects, but as a superhero movie, or we've drawn some crazy ones like coming of age. There was another one. It was basically experimental. So I'm very literal. So to have like an experimental film is like, well, yeah, it's not my thing, but something to say for giving it a shot. It's like, yeah.
No, that's so cool. I really love that. That's amazing. I definitely, personally, I think got into theater and stuff with an eye for experimental. I was all like, when I first moved to New York, my like big thing was going to see this weird performance art show where you like sat in the audience and there was this big clear plexiglass between the stage and the audience, and during the course of the show they like threw water balloons with paint on it, and then it would like paint that section of the plexiglass and obscure a certain part of it, so like by the end of the show you couldn't see the actors at all. You just saw this like art thing that they had made, and it was nonsensical. I mean, like, the more I have no idea what's going on, the better it is. Sometimes I'm all like, yeah, what's up? Let's get into it. This guy's just screaming for like 3 minutes. Why? I don't know. That's great. I was just into the weird. If it was weird, I was like, yes. Where can I go? Taking it. My entire New York experience was weird. Like, I was like, I could go to a regular open mic, but this open mic, everyone's dressed up in costumes. I'm going to that one. Like, just better. I don't know. I appreciate that that's not your thing, though, and that, like, I also love this idea of this, like, these literal interpretations of these 48-hour prompts, because some of them are wild. So I can't imagine you being like, what does this say? How am I supposed to do this? And then in 13 seconds, you have to come up with how you're going to do it.
Absolutely.
So fun, though.
And so that was my introduction to Austin, the creative scene. And I found out later, Dave is the Cold Town guy. And so I saw a couple of shows, but at the time, I think I was feeling more like an elitist and like burnt out from trying really hard in Chicago. And I was like going to see some improv in Austin and feeling like I've already seen and studied from the best people in the world. So I'm like, this is good, but they're not the best, So I really didn't like pursue it at the time. I'd see shows and made some friends that were in shows, and I'd go support them. And I actually had some Chicago friends come down for Out of Bounds, so I'd go to see their show. But for the most part, I was kind of thinking I'm done with the live improv and sketch scene. And I think a lot of that was actually motivated by just productivity. Because when I moved back to Austin, I was almost 30 at the time. And I was like, I still don't have like a steady career. I'm teaching summer camp, and I freelance doing some video stuff here and there, but so I started really focusing on like film and teaching. So I was doing those two side by side, and got a job at Austin Film Society as a mentor to elementary kids at an after school program. So I made some great connections with some folks from there. My friend Ethan Bernal, he recommended me to be a teacher. So I made movies with him, and I was there a long time. I want to say like 4 years, 5 years, but when the pandemic went down, I lost all my contract work. DMA, I was with 7 years, nothing. AFS, every contract job I had, you don't have a job anymore. And it was timely because previously I got married, and then 2020 pandemic, I also had a baby. So it was like, okay, well, I guess I'm stay-at-home dad, and everybody else is staying home at the moment as well. Cool. So I'll like figure this out. And my wife went back to work in the office immediately. I forgot to mention, so right before the pandemic, 2018, I got married 2016 and realized, oh snap, like we both want a family. I better knock out that dream of like pursuing and making a feature film. Otherwise we're going to have a kid and I might have no time. So I just grinded out a feature length script and wrote it in a way that I could make it. And thankfully it was released at the same time the pandemic hit. So we did festivals in 2020 early on. It was like January, February, I believe. And then went to 2 festivals. And by March, I think that's when that surge like really started to spike in Austin, and it was on Amazon at the same time for people to watch. And so I was like, ooh, that may be good. But it obviously is a really hard time for everyone, including myself. But yeah. So if you're out there and you're a stay-at-home dad and you're weathering this storm, keep at it.
Keep at it.
You're doing amazing.
Absolutely. Plus, you mentioned your kid's 1.5, mine's 4. It clears up. They start going to school. You got this daytime now. It'll open up for you. It feels like, you're in quarantine again, and I get it for sure. Right. Also, they capital T don't truly grasp the hit that creatives took in the pandemic, such that every job stopped. Yeah. Like there was nothing. Like my current business that makes most of our household income is booking AV guys for events. And so there was none of that, right? At all. And it's crazy. Like it just decimated. And a lifestyle too that was like really starting to become baked into American culture, the freelance culture, the like doing gig to gig. Like it wasn't unusual anymore. When I first started doing it, people were like, are you sure you want to quit your job and wing it? And I was like, let's wing it. And it was weird then when I quit my job, in like 2010, but when, by the time the pandemic hit in 2020, I had been rocking and rolling. I'd figured it out. I got a bunch of plates in the air. Great. It's going good. And then every plate fell, so in the way that like, I totally feel you as far as like, it really takes the wind out of your sails. It really does. I'm very proud of you that you got that film done too, that you like knocked it out for 2 reasons. A, pandemic. B, baby. These things, they take a lot out of you. And you did it. And so like, you've got that, like you have the experience, you like made it happen, and it's available for people to watch. Win, win, win. Yes. Like all over. You did it. Good job.
Yeah. And with any like huge commitment, I think, you feel like, there's no like I'm finished. It's more like I've just got to like abandon it. Like, okay. And so like, honestly, I went through like a big like depression like stage of like not having the project anymore. I'm learning to be a new dad during the pandemic. I don't have any more work because of the pandemic, and nothing really to look forward to except like getting up the next day and changing these diapers and getting a very little sleep again the next day. Yeah, it was really, really hard. But I'm definitely blessed with like a solid community and a supportive wife, obviously. And as far as like the movie goes, like making the Bobzula, that was just like a God thing to me. Like the timing was so much in our favor that we were, had a basically if it was a sentence, there was a period and then pandemic. So it was like so timely in that, like, if I'm sure there's people out there making movies and then they just started or they're halfway through or, like, and they either got to like risk it or power through or abandon it or so. Man, I have a lot of respect for people out there that are still like being creative and still trying to get their message out there, or knowing that art makes a difference. And so it's a different time. Like I kind of feel guilty in a way that I'm had it easy to make a huge marathon of a project before all this went down. But I mean, I for sure, like as far as projects go, I haven't done anything harder besides my kid. But the difference was, I think, for the movie was like I had so much support behind me in it. And all I really had was a short film that I made in 2008 to show like, these are the characters. And then I had the script. And then people just started coming together in Austin and the surrounding area, and like, oh, you need a house? Sure. Just let me know which weekend, and, you know, we'll be upstairs. It's like, you give me your home, like, to film that. Like, so like, that's just one example. I can go on and on and on about like the discounted rate at the high school that we rented. You know, it's like, we rented basically a high school opened up their doors, and it's like, yeah, like, make it. Like, really? Like, you're going to give us a high school? Like, and so that's where it becomes kind of, not kind of, very humbling to me. It's just like, you have to have, people donating to you, like their time, their money.
Yeah, it's not just parenting that takes a village. It's literally creating art, trying to put together something. Like, you can't just make, even the 48 hours got a bunch of people like assigned to each film that they're trying to create, because you need a team, you need a group of people. I'm so glad that the Austin film community and, you know, other people around you were so willing to help and be there for you. Like, that just makes me happy that you know, our city has that kindness to it. It's a very helpful to artists who are just trying to put funny stuff or wild stuff on the internet.
Yeah. And it came from everywhere, you know, like, as a producer, you have to know, like, you have to be creative in your resources. So, and every circle came out to help me on this, like, people from my church, people from, my hometown outside of Houston drove in to play a small part or just be the catcher, the high school, you know. It's like, thank you. Like, wow. People bring, even further East Texas brought me lenses. You know, it's like stuff that I know now, like I can never repay these people back, ever. Not that they would expect that, but, you know, how can you be boastful or anything, you know, once you've received so much from people that are like, you know, that have your back. So,
but that's what you're doing when you're teaching. You're giving back. You're creating an environment for other artists to be able to do what you were able to do. People had your back, so you have other people's back. It's a long process of everybody taking care of each other. And that person, you're right, that lent their time to you in the moment is not like looking for something back. But if they hear that you then helped somebody else in a similar way, they're like, great, you know, awesome. I'm glad. Perhaps that person inspired that in you. Like, and that, you know, especially from a perspective of a person who's been teaching this whole time, like since the beginning of your career, even, you know, right after school, you're teaching other people. Like, you're helping people. You're helping to make the landscape of artists out there better and, you know, more open to their own skills and abilities in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the reminder. I do, you know, I am ambitious and I care about like growing. Obviously I have a family that I'd like to take care of. And, if my art's able to do that someday, that would be incredible. But yeah, I appreciate you saying like, it's good to recognize like how I am giving back and what I can do, whether it be through teaching or helping out other friends on their projects.
Heck, even being a guest for me right now. The people who are listening to this episode will get something out of it that then they themselves will be able to, maybe they're like, should I move to Austin? And you're like, dude, everyone's super nice and they help me out. And they're like, well, I'm going to go, because not that we're always trying to get more people to move to Austin, but at the end of the day, it's a kind artistic community, and that matters. That matters for getting it done.
For sure. And gosh, it's incredible to know that there's a community that supports that, unreal. Because I think it's also a time where people know Tesla's here, Samsung's coming, so art's kind of being pushed out, like being gentrified, and so anything we can do to like have each other backs to encourage artists, support them, it's so important in our community at the moment, and especially in diverse communities, like it's very clear that the Hispanic community doesn't want more people like pushing them out, and I say that specifically after having conversations with friends last weekend. Like people are having to move, way the heck out of town, like probably driving an hour to work in Austin or more. And so it's a challenging time. So these bigger companies, Mr. Tesla, if you're listening to this, I know his name is Elon Musk, but if, like these big companies need to preserve the culture that grew the city. And, I'm not any better. I'm a transplant as well. So I came in, I contributed to the gentrification process, but I think it's also good to have some kind of cultural literacy and supporting the arts and, what made the city so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. The groups of people that have come into a place need to be respected in the way that they've meshed together and turned the city into a pleasant place. I mean, it's lovely for a reason. And if we adjust the makeup of it, will it still be lovely? I don't know. It's hard to tell. Sometimes I think the silly artists are what keep Austin weird, are what make it a pleasant place. When I first brought my mom to visit, I'm also a transplant, and when my mom came to visit me for the first time, we were walking in downtown, and just out of nowhere it started to rain, and these two young kids started dancing in the crosswalk as they were crossing with us, and they were twirling, and we were like covering our heads like, ah, and they're like twirling and dancing, and one of the boys turned to me and he just said, "Isn't the rain beautiful?" and then like skipped off. And I was like, and that's Austin, and that's what Austin is like. And I'll stand by that story. I'm like, that's what it's like. It's a little magical wonderland with a boy with long curly hair twirling in front of you in the rain saying, "Isn't the rain beautiful?" Like,
oh my gosh.
best.
Yeah. Every now and then I'll forget, like, or I'll say something like, Austin's not so weird. And then I'll see like a elderly man like ride by on a bicycle in his Speedo. I'm like, okay, that's Austin, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's something about allowing people to be who they are. And I think that the thriving improv scene speaks to that. Just to harken back to my uncoolness diatribe before, is that if we maintain a level of weirdness and uncoolness, good, right? Also, tech people who are coming in town, guys, you need to be entertained. Allow us to entertain you, okay?
Yeah.
But if we have to drive a long way to get there, it's going to be less entertaining, is all I'm saying.
Sure.
You know, you mentioned earlier that you were a little elitist about getting involved in the improv scene, and yet that's how you and I connected, was that you have since let your guard down and allowed yourself to accept that perhaps there are some good spots in Austin. You mentioned that you were afraid to get involved because you were like, well, I've been taught by the best. What can I learn here? What weakened your resolve, and what sort of sweet Austin weirdness convinced you to get involved teaching and being part of the Austin improv community?
Yeah, just being real. I needed something to get me out of the house. Like I'm even though I'm an introvert and I can be drained by a lot of people, which seems like improv culture is very extroverted. I was really craving like live comedy again. After seeing it almost every night of the week in Chicago, so I was like, I've got this like training. I got to get back out there. And even I think I did mention like feeling like an elitist, like what more can I learn? But let me back up. So wanting to get out of the house and, having done the feature film, I was looking for something to inspire me. And, I feel like there's so much negativity in the world anymore. I was almost feeling like selfish for staying away from it. And I really did feel a call to bring joy to people. And I wanted to contribute to that again. But if I'm also being real, I experienced some like mild trauma in Chicago as a performer, and so the fact of getting on stage again was scary. Not from like a stage fright perspective, but just the whole thing. I mean, improv, where I came from, is very much like a cult, and you got to play the game, and it's political, and if you know somebody, they possibly determine whether you get stage experience. That's, so I really don't want to deal with that anymore. I'm like a grown ass man now, and I just want to do my own thing. And I feel like I can do that with movies. And, but again, I felt like a responsibility to bring joy to people. So I randomly ran across a posting, in the Austin improv community on Facebook, and I saw that Fallout was hiring improv teachers, and I was like, I guess I'll just like fill out this thing and see. I'll just see, we'll see what happens. Like it's been a minute since I've done this, and so I long story short, I got in and I was teaching. I think it was like level 3 improv at the theater. And it's so weird to me going back into a theater, and I love it. Oh my gosh. It's like so grimy, and it's like a dive, you're going down this little alleyway, and man, there's no sign of like these people are rich. Like it's just the best, it's just like a stage, some chairs, and literally a single wall with a hole in it. I'm like, perfect. So it's just something special about that. So I did the level 3 class teaching it, and I was like, man, I really want to perform again. And Cody at the theater asked if I'd write the curriculum for one of their sketch classes. So I helped with that, and taught sketch level 2 at the same time. Is it 2 or 3? So I was basically writing the curriculum for Fallout at the same time while teaching the sketch class. And yeah, it's just the best. Like that to me, it's like being in a room with creatives, even if it's like 4 people or whatever. It's just like, here's what I think's funny, and then putting it out there, and they perform it for you, and it's like, wow, like, and you can get feedback. So to me, even from the beginning, my favorite thing has been like watching an idea grow and come to life. Like, to me, there's nothing better than that. And with improv, it can happen instantly. In the film world, it takes a long time, like, to develop. And now with like the digital age, like you rarely get feedback unless it's like some, ninth grader bullying you on YouTube, or just, like, so there's something really special about like live comedy, live improv. And so yeah, that's how I got back into it. And I'm still fresh. Like that was just before the new year. So I 8 weeks, I think it was like November that I started last year. So
Awesome.
still getting my feet wet, and
Yeah, still figuring out all those nooks and crannies at Fallout. You're like, there's another room? What? Where does this door go? There's an elevator? Yeah. And that's my favorite part of that space, man, is it's like a labyrinth, and there's like, and you're like, wait, where am I? And I love it. It's really great. It's a wonderful space. A wonderful space. Has a lot of great energy in it. I'm so glad to hear that you're part of it.
Yeah. Thank you. I of course am comparing, but I feel like Austin is really special in the comedy scene, in that like the other theaters are very supportive of the other theaters. Even though there was that vibe in Austin where it's like, oh, okay, these performers are also performing here, but it's usually like a different philosophy or something. But I feel like Austin theater community really does go out of its way to support one another, and have it could be a Cold Town team playing at Fallout or at the Hideout, or so that's, to me, that shows that there is a thriving community, and that comes from the top down, in my opinion. Having good leadership, supporting the community, and at the end of the day, it's the people, it's the improvisers, and so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you get to be part of it, and that you've come to Austin Improv and at a great point in its history. It is so deeply supportive of one another. It's become a single group as opposed to, 5 or 6 individual theaters. Like it's definitely gotten that way. And I think, some of the pandemic lessons I think that we've all had was the ability to talk to one another online. And then there were like all sorts of online summits about like, hey guys, since we have a lot of time to not be on stage, let's talk about how we can work on this and develop this kind of stuff. And it's just good. In the pandemic, I feel like theater leaders either went down the drain and closed their doors and were like, forget it, I'm out. Or they were like, okay, let's try to really build the community of our city and connect with people and make it so that when we do open our doors again, it's a better, more inclusive, like safer space where everybody can make cool stuff and like feel comfortable doing it. Like, and it's a great thing. I'm glad you're part of it. I'm glad you're here in Austin with me, and hopefully at some point we'll see each other in the flesh. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be on the podcast and to share your stories and chat with me and explore.
Absolutely. If I may, I don't even know if these people care or listen to me ramble, but I'll just say, like, as mentioned, like Rachel Mason, huge influence, Micah Philbrook, Barry Height, and Libra, I mentioned, Michael Gilman, such a boss. And yeah, I can go on and on, but those those people really just like changed the game for me, and were a huge like why that I'm like continuing to do what I'm doing, which is just make stuff, and continue to collaborate with folks. So.
Awesome. So good. I love how your outro is like a thanks to teachers. Like, you did it, guys. You're doing it, and it matters. I know you're listening. Teachers listen all the way to the end. You're doing it, and it matters. So thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Yes But Why podcast. Check out all of our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com, or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.